Joe Biden has wasted no time getting to work. On his first day in the Oval Office, the president signed more than a dozen executive orders, many of them designed to undo his predecessor's legacy.
Some of the executive actions I'm going to be signing today are going to help change the course of the COVID crisis, and we're going to combat climate change in a way that we haven't done so far, and advance racial equity and support other underserved communities. We're going to rebuild our economy as well. And these are just all starting points.
Biden signed orders to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, halt the construction of the Mexican border wall, and end the immigration ban from predominantly Muslim countries. But it was clear his main priority is addressing the spread of COVID-19, which has killed more than 400,000 Americans. He's requiring masks and social distancing on all federal properties for the first 100 days of his term. Biden also reinstated Washington's ties with the World Health Organization after Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from the body last year. And he extended a federal eviction moratorium by 2 months to the end of March. He also paused student loan payments until the end of September. Data released on Thursday highlights the economic pain the pandemic continues to inflict. The Labor Department says new unemployment claims remained elevated at 900,000 last week.
We have to rebuild our economy so that it creates more prosperity for more people and ensures that American workers can compete in an increasingly competitive global economy.
The Biden team is proposing a $1.9 trillion package to provide relief from the economic effects of the pandemic. It includes a $1,400 check for every American, enhanced unemployment insurance, and funding for the reopening of schools. Republicans have already pushed back against the additional spending, but the new government says the economy will need every dollar.
It was designed with the components that were necessary to give people the relief they needed. So what's challenging is, what are you going to cut?
Democrats controlled both houses of Congress, so the extra aid is expected to pass. But Biden has more ambitious plans, such as the raising of taxes on the rich, higher infrastructure spending, and the cancellation of student debt. To get those through, the president will need to keep working to secure support from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more on the new administration, let's go to Joseph Foudy. He's an associate professor of economics at New York University's Stern School of Business. Welcome back to the program, Joseph. Let's start by looking at some of the executive orders that Joe Biden has just signed. The bulk of them involve measures to stem the spread of COVID-19 across the US, including a mask mandate for federal employees, setting up federal vaccination centres across the country, as well as a national pandemic coordinator. You can't help but think that if these measures were introduced at the beginning of the pandemic last year, would the US be in quite a different situation in terms of both its health crisis and its economic crisis?
Yeah, we really do think if there was a more systematic approach, it would have made a difference. Having said that, if you look at the current outbreaks in Europe and other parts of the world, we realize that almost any government is challenged by this. But these first measures really symbolize that they're going to take a systematic and coordinated approach from day one, and it's really important to tell the public.
And of course, part of the effort is addressing the deep economic crisis that the US has been plunged into because of the pandemic. Joe Biden wants to push through a $1.9 trillion new coronavirus relief package. Presumably, now that the Democrats control both houses of Congress, the passage of that bill will be made a little easier. How important is it for the US economy that this bill does get approved?
I think it's really significant. We see light at the end of the tunnel. Vaccines are available, but we're waiting on supply. Joe Biden has a plan to vaccinate 100 million people in his first 100 million days. Already about 5% of the US population has been vaccinated. But we have a real economic crisis from last year. And the idea is $2 trillion is the insurance policy to give the economy strength until we're past the pandemic.
Now, another one of the executive orders that Joe Biden signed was one that re-entered the US into the Paris Climate Agreement, which is designed to limit global heating. Donald Trump, his predecessor, had said that all this agreement would do would be to cripple the US economy and would do little to save the climate crisis. What's your view? Do you think the US economy would indeed be adversely affected by this, or would it stand to benefit from it?
Yeah, so I'm skeptical that there are going to be the large economic costs that people see. For the vast majority of industries, there's not that much pollution. The other thing is that the investments you get in green technology are products that actually you can then sell to other countries. But it's important to remember that merely signing the accord doesn't do anything in terms of U.S. pollution. Finding ways to reduce pollutants is going to require an enormous fight in Congress. That's a long-term, not a short-term issue.
And what about the order that is blocking the development of the Keystone XL pipeline? We know this has been a bit of a political football in recent years. Obama had vetoed it, Trump had reversed that, and now we have Biden coming in to reverse that yet again. We know this pipeline was designed to funnel Canadian crude through the US. It was also conceived at a time when oil prices were at historic highs. Before 2008, they're now at historic lows. Does it make sense to cancel this project now from an economic point of view, let alone an environmental one?
Yeah, so it's mostly symbolic at this point. It's unclear what the long-term demand for that oil is going to be. It's critically important to Canada, and it's going to hit or hurt U.S. relations with Canada by canceling this. But Joe Biden felt this was an important signal to the environmental community about sort of his vision for sustainability in a world in which he can't really pass any other laws in the short term.
And the next big thing on Joe Biden's agenda is set to be some of the economic reforms he wants to introduce. And part of that, we know, is the unwinding of some of Donald Trump's 2017 tax cuts, including the hiking of the corporate tax rate. What will that do for the US economy? Should we be worried about the adverse effect that some of those changes might have?
Yeah, so if he truly reversed all of those corporate tax cuts, you would expect that to hit the stock market. That could really sort of undermine business confidence. In reality, what's most likely to happen is some small increase, still lower than it was before Donald Trump came into office. It's important to note that the largest firms in the United States never really paid that rate. That tends to affect sort of medium-sized enterprises that don't kind of have all of the, elaborate tax avoidance schemes and kind of global operations. But that, too, is going to be really difficult to get through a narrowly divided Congress. So my guess is you'll see a modest hike, but not nearly as high as it used to be.
Okay, it looks like there is a lot on Joe Biden's plate right now. Joseph Foudy from NYU, thank you again for joining us on the program.